Is there hope in the midst of chaos? Now, you notice I didn't say there is hope in the midst of chaos. And that's because when John asked me to speak today, I thought, well, I want to speak on something that I need to know more about. And what I need to know more about right now is hope. I need some more hope right now. And I would suspect that maybe you do too. So let's take a look at this. Chaos is defined as complete disorder and confusion. And it seems like a lot of what's going on right now is chaos. Hope, on the other hand, is something else. When I think of hope, I think of two things. The first is Emily Dickinson's poem that begins, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all." So in referring to the power of hope, she says it perches in the soul and it sings the tune without any words and it never stops. I love that. So these are difficult times we're living in. They're difficult politically. There are threats to our voting. Our president is in the hospital. We have fires raging in the West. We have hurricanes in greater, they come along more often than ever before. We have unemployment. We have poverty. We have concentration camps at our southern border, for God's sakes. We have demonstrations and riots in our streets. We have police brutality and white supremacists coming to the foreground. And the overlay of all of that is COVID-19, the world pandemic. So one might not blame us if we sometimes feel like we're insignificant creatures living in an unjust and chaotic world. There is so much bad news all the time. In fact, my desire to be well informed is currently at odds with my desire to remain sane. That's not original with me, but it sure rings true for me. Chaos. We all want some kind of calm. In fact, in Egypt, the government has responded to the COVID crisis, especially when people were staying at home and things were basically closed down. They asked the city drivers in Cairo to drive around sounding their horns, hoping that the sounds of the city would induce a return to tranquility and normality. So this was called Operation Tutankhamun. I'm so sorry, Tutankhamun. And that will last for about a week. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, these times are hard, but they will pass. They may pass like a kidney stone, but they will pass. Consider this. The struggles that you are in today may be developing the strengths that you need tomorrow. That famous theologian and philosopher Bob Marley said, "You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice." And one other quote I came along with that I don't have the source for, but I love it, is, "Sometimes when things are falling apart, they may actually be falling into place." Now, we know that there have been great prophecies of a time coming when there will be more peace, more inclusiveness, more creativity, enough food for everyone, enough everything for everyone. And it sounds wonderful. But what we also know is that we have a dramatic change from one kind of a world to another kind of world. There's a lot of chaos at the change point, a lot of it. And that is a classic with any great change. And maybe that's what we're going through right now. I would love for that to be the case. We have to consider that what is happening in our world and in our country right now may well be, at least in part, an opportunity for us to grow spiritually, to raise our consciousness, and thereby helping to raise the consciousness of the planet. You may have heard the story about the little boy and the caterpillar and how he found this caterpillar, and he'd heard in school how the caterpillar will turn into a butterfly. So he brought the caterpillar home and he gave it food and water and he watched it make its cocoon and he waited and he waited. And then suddenly one day he saw that the butterfly inside was trying to make its way out of the cocoon. And he watched and he watched and he saw that the butterfly was struggling so hard. And he thought, oh, this is too hard. I'm going to help him. So he got a pair of scissors out and snipped a little here and snipped a little there in order to make it easier for the butterfly to get out of the cocoon. Well, when the butterfly finally did emerge from the cocoon, its body was swollen and its wings were all shriveled up. You see, the butterfly needed that struggle in order to develop the strength he needed. In fact, the butterfly's struggle to push its way through the tiny opening of the cocoon pushes the fluid out of its body and into its wings. Without the struggle, the butterfly would never fly. And so the boy's good intentions actually hurt the butterfly. Wow, what a lesson for us. Struggling is actually an important part of many growth experiences. In fact, it is the struggle that creates you and gives you the ability to be the best version of you. When you find yourself struggling, ask yourself, why is this happening for me? What is this situation teaching me? It's all about consciousness. So let's talk about hope for a minute, a definition of hope. To expect with confidence, to want something to happen or be true. Hope is the little voice you hear whisper, maybe, when it seems like the entire world is shouting no. You see, hope is rooted in possibilities. Think about it. Possibilities. When something is possible, there is hope. Doesn't even have to be probable. If it's possible, there is hope. You see, hope resides at the soul level. Hope is sacred and powerful and real. Hope is what gives us courage to get up in the morning, a reason to live. Hope helps us see the silver lining. Now, we all know about optimists and pessimists. If I have my own take on that, my feeling is the pessimists will say, well, I always figure there's the worst possible outcome. Things are going to be bad because then when they happen, I won't be destroyed and devastated. But I think I like the optimist way of looking at things because the optimist sees the possibilities and hopes for the best. And then if it doesn't go the way they had hoped it would, then they can deal with it. But in the meantime, in that space between now and then, they're living a life of more peace, of more happiness, of more joy instead of doom and gloom. I'd much rather be an optimist. Now, I'm not suggesting that we bury our heads in the sand, but I'm saying that we don't need to be overwhelmed by hopelessness and despair. We just don't want to live there. Where there are possibilities, there's hope, and we need to live in that. When your brain keeps you up at night worrying about anything, tell that negative community, that committee that meets inside your head to exit down and shut up. You know, we have more control over our thoughts than we think we do. You find yourself going into that terrible territory, you just say, nope, cancel, rewind. I'm not going there. Now, when I think of hope, I think of also, I mentioned Emily Dickinson, but I also think of Viktor Frankl. You probably have heard of Viktor Frankl's wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning. Of course, he was in the concentration camp during World War II. And he was a remarkable man in the way he responded to his maltreatment there. Here's a quote from him. "We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, I would say a person, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So again, it's about consciousness. It's about consciousness. Pema Chodron, the wonderful Buddhist nun, says, sticking with that uncertainty, getting the knack of relaxing in the midst of chaos, learning not to panic, this is the spiritual path. Mark and Angel Chernoff talk about calmness as a human superpower. Even in the midst of life's many storms, we have the capacity to stand in the center of our own peace. Albert Camus said, in the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. In the midst of winter, I found that there was inside of me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me, there's something stronger, something better, pushing back. So let's face it, life can be hard. It can be challenging. We have heartache, we have tragedy, we have loss. It's all part of the human condition. This is not something that happens to somebody else. It happens to everyone. But what matters is what happens afterwards. In difficult times, Robert Schuller says, people too often concentrate on the problems of today rather than the opportunities of tomorrow. In so doing, they not only lose the potential of today, they also throw away the beauty of tomorrow. But also remember, hope doesn't mean you stop trying to make things better. Instead, you work actively at improving the situation. Barack Obama said, the best way to not feel hopelessness is to get up and do something. Don't wait for good things to happen to you. If you go out and make some good things happen, you will fill the world with hope, and you will fill yourselves with hope. Okay, so all you light workers out there, you who feel an enormous pull towards helping others, you are called to act as a beacon for the earth and commit to serving humanity. You can spread hope faster than the virus can spread. And that light is needed more now than in a long time on our planet and in our country. The main difference between those who are hopeful and those who are hopeless on the same journey is that the former look at the positive side of their journey, while the latter look at the negative side. We hope, and with hope, we open to new possibilities. Possibilities. I'd like to close with a reading from Ralph Marston, and this is for all you light workers out there. Sometimes it seems that all the news is bad. Sometimes it seems that the world around you is tumbling hopelessly downhill and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. Yet that is never the case. For the more difficult life becomes, the more motivated everyone becomes to make real, substantial, positive changes. And when enough people become determined enough, good and positive and valuable things begin to happen. Hope, which may have previously been nearly impossible to see, begins to spring into action. When the darkness becomes unbearable, someone will step forward and shine a light, and that light will inspire others and others and others. You are a light worker. Live in hope and shine your light. And I leave that with you with love and blessings.
Powerful words of wisdom, and to refocus on where we are at this time. And yes, things can change. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'd like to open things up for any questions for Pam, as we have been doing. So please unmute your microphones if you have anything for Pamela tonight, and ask away.
Pam, I just want to say that was incredibly wonderful and inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I love the tune comment. Okay.
Oh, I knew that was a stretch, but if Pete can tell those kind of jokes, I can.
That was good.
He's a nice guy, man.
Fabulous, Pam. Very, very hopeful.
Thank you, Nancy.
That's what we need right now.
Sure did.
Yeah. It's just being able to keep our minds focused and not let some of the things that we keep hearing all around us keep centered.
I sometimes think that we forget that we have a responsibility to do that because it impacts on everybody around them, and they can impact on people around them too. So, I mean, John is probably the most positive person I've ever met in my life. So he teaches this all the time, right, John?
You hear that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're the best, John.
Mr. Humble over here.
Thank you.
He is very hopeful.
Good.
I know I get under his skin, you know what? And he doesn't even say anything.
Yeah, Pete's like that too.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Forgiveness, I tell
Yeah.
you.
I forgive you.
I know. Over and over.
I think it's good to remember, though, that those ripples can be big and small.
Mhm.
It can be as simple as opening the door and as big as doing something to help somebody else that really needs it,
Mhm. I don't want to, I'm not saying this to brag, please understand that, but we went to Taco Bell and we went to pay for our meal, and I said to the gal, we want to pay for the car behind us. Oh, she said. So she paid for both our meals, and then we drove up to the street to get access onto 28th Street. And it took us forever to do that. And finally, the car behind us came up alongside of us, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And we really made his day, you know.
And I think that made your day too.
It sure
It
did.
made us feel good. But the thing, you know, and he was, you could tell he was common America. He wasn't, you know. And I, you know, to have somebody that you don't even know care about you, that's what I could see in his smile. Yeah, and it did warm our hearts.
It did make our day. It was the highlight of the day. It was such a nice young man, and it was just wonderful.
I know I was having one of my hardest days, and I went to Big B and pulled up, and my coffee and my Brago were free. It changes everything, because I just thought, okay, this is starting out as a really rough day, but it doesn't have to stay this way, and it can change.
Yes.
And one time when I was in line at McDonald's with those dual lines now, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This one gentleman in a truck was just like, go ahead. You've been waiting too long, and let me switch lanes to get in, to get out faster. So I made sure I had the right truck, and it was probably about 3 back for me because he kept being nice, but I paid for his.
Yeah, that was good.
You can pay for me anytime.
Okay, Frank, we'll do that.
You know, during this whole experience with COVID, our usual coping mechanisms or outlets or how we fill our jelly bean jar back up have been closed off. I love to go to the symphony. I would go to the local university. Music department is outstanding, and I just would go to every musical performance I could. And I know that many people are on a short fuse right now. And I've gotten on a short fuse. And then I stop and think, my parents were in World War II, and my father was at Pearl Harbor. And World War II went on for 4 or 5 years, and this is only 5 or 6 months, you know? And how did they do that? How did they? And I know America didn't have as many situations like bombing London and Paris and all that, and yet still their resolve was maintained. And I think, gosh, if they can make it through that generation, surely I can make it through this.
Mm-hmm.
And Pam, I appreciate that message when you to continue your a person's internal hope and pass it on, because that the message of keep on keeping on to pass on hope is a very good message many of us need right now. And I'm a massage therapist and a social worker, and I work in healthcare. And so I see a lot, and it's hard to be hopeful some days. So that message of keep on keeping on is very apropos today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
To hear that, you know, again, it's about possibilities. There are all sorts of wonderful possibilities out there. Yeah.
Just what makes that silly old ant think he'll move a rubbery plant? Anyone knows an ant can't move a rubbery plant, 'cause he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky. Hope so anytime you're getting low. Just remember that ant. Oops, there goes another rubber tree plant. Oops, there goes another rubber tree plant. Once there was a silly old ram, think he'd punch a hole in a dam. Anyone met that ram, scram. He kept punching that dam, 'cause he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky. Hope so anytime you're feeling bad. Just remember that. Just remember that. Damn. Oops, there goes a billion kilowatt dam. Oops, there goes a billion kilowatt dam. Oops, there goes another problem, kerplop. Oops, there goes another problem, kerplop. Come on. Come on.
Great job, Frank.
Yeah.
Now, Pete couldn't watch it. He just couldn't stand to watch it.
Well, very humorous. Took our minds off our problems there for a minute, didn't it?
Whoops.
A sign of hope. Yep.
Yep.
Good choice.
Wonderful choice.
Mm.